Hey everyone, welcome to another episode. This is JR, founder and CEO of Social Market.
Hey, my name's Leon Hitchens. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Social Market.
This is Social Ledger Report, where we talk about the weekly news, trends, and just trending things on the crypto space. But before we kick off, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. It costs you nothing. That motivates us and pushes us to keep creating content for you. So if you really like what you see, or if you don't like it, be sure to like and dislike or whatever you like. But yeah, on to the markets.
It's kind of a slow week, really, in the crypto world. I
It
don't
kind of
feel like there was a
was.
lot of
I wouldn't
movement.
say, yeah, I wouldn't say there was anything too flashy. Also, if you haven't seen last week's episode, go to app.socialmarket.tech or follow us on our channels and our links, our socials, and you can see it there. So right now, it's actually leaning more to altcoin season. We're seeing kind of this mixed market signal, but it's really more leaning towards altcoin season. And then fear and greed index, it's right in the middle, a little bit more inclining to greed. And inflation is actually closer to 3% right now, which I know this is a yearly view on the index. We're actually trying to update it to be monthly to keep it more up to date. But for as of last month, the USD inflation was right at 2.9, so almost at that 3% mark, which is still relatively high, but it's staying where it's pretty level headed. Also, gold reached 3,600 as of last week. Also, Nasdaq is these are the ETFs that you're seeing in market overview. They're all at relatively high levels of price. I know S&P 500 is actually trending in the markets. It's supposed to go even higher.
Pretty steady, week overall. Like you had, some IPOs and some stuff that we're going to talk about, but
Yep.
Bitcoin held on. I think it's 115 right now, 116. Ethereum's at like
That's right.
4,600, 40, I think it's like
Oh,
4,600. Yeah,
uh,
so 115, 6, almost 116. ETH's, holding strong at 4,600. And I think the ETH all-time high is 49.46. So that's really good.
yep.
XRP, even with all the news and the pushes from them as the company, as a there's a word for it, as a protocol, they really haven't increased their value too much. It's sat around the $3 mark, which is a good sign in many ways, but they could become like a banking protocol, and I'm just kind of shocked that they're staying pretty stable. Same thing happens with Chainlink, even though they're getting a ton of news around them.
Yeah.
There's really not a lot of movement around them.
Market movement. Yeah.
I'm trying to search for Chainlink on the chains and tokens, but it's not letting me. Is it based on?
Yeah. So right now we've been having some issues a little bit on the back end of what we're doing at Social Market. We're actually in the middle of converting this into a coverage based wallet with market analysis. We changed providers on our data broker. So that is still updating. You will be able to view Chainlink, but that's probably the reason why you can't see Chainlink right now because it wasn't available before for some reason, if that makes
Oh,
sense.
really weird. Let me go look. There's Department of Commerce news, like $24. Yeah, let's see. It's kind of high from the start of like start of the year, but start of the year was like 15, 18. Right now it's sitting at 25-ish. High was like 26 within the last 3 months. All-time high was, wow, I didn't realize Chainlink had hit that high at one time, 52.70.
Oh, that was in 2021, right?
Yeah, 2021. I'm still just like kind of shocked. But again, like they're talking about Swift, they're talking about DTCC, the AI Oracle stuff over there. Like there's all of this financial institutions adopting XRP and Chainlink, and they're really not moving up in price that heavily. I know that there's like a circulating supply and all of that, but I would just expect them to kind of scale up as this news really hits every time.
I think it's a matter of time. Right now, there's a little bit of fear in the markets with tariffs.
Yeah.
That is kind of like a back and forth sort of deal, especially with certain countries like China. Although I think once that settles and people aren't afraid with like the job markets because there's also the fear that AI is going to take our jobs or most jobs. That also signals people, hey, maybe I should hoard my money instead of spending it. which is kind of counterintuitive with the crypto markets, but that's usually how it goes. I mean,
That's fair.
um,
Job reports were really slow, but we'll see kind of what happens. Market staying strong. No crypto
for sure.
winners. No real slowdowns. No bear markets. So we're seeing the right signals head in the right direction. Now it's just
For sure.
how much can they stabilize?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as of our stories today, we'll talk about Gemini's IPO. It actually hit an IPO this week. And then we'll talk about Polymarket venture capital value reaches 10 billion, which kind of tells everyone who doubted Polymarket that, hey, maybe you should not be so quick to judge. And then World Liberty Finance launched 2 weeks ago, but there were some more stories that developed from that, and including Eric Trump. And lastly, this is more on the business venture side, but Jesse Pollack, who's the head of Base and part of the executive team of Coinbase, he went to Y Combinator, which is this renowned startup accelerator in San Francisco, and there could be a more push and incentive to crypto-based startups coming out. So overall, several compelling stories for us to talk about. And with that being said, leave a like in the video if you like it, subscribe to the channel if you like it, or dislike it if you dislike it, you name it. All the shameless plugs. But now, on to our first story. So Gemini's IPO.
So big moment for the Winklevoss twins. I saw all of them, just all over Twitter talking about it. 10 years in the making, kind of,
Wow.
getting shafted at the Facebook world. And, who knows what the actual truth is there, but they hit the public markets, and they were also not only beyond that, they were also just showing up on a lot of. Why is this such a bad screenshot?
Yeah, I guess the SEO
Ge-
or word search is kind of
yeah.
mixed. Mixed.
Yeah,
Sorry, guys from Versatile.
but I don't know. This is a terrible screenshot, but Gemini was topping charts on Apple's App Store.
Okay, yeah.
I think a large part of it was the Bitcoin credit card, the XRP credit card, and then the fact that they IPO'd. Everybody was looking at them. The outcome and the goal for them was to raise 425 million. In its IPO, which I think they did, they popped about 30-40% from open. And then that puts them at 3.3 billion out there. And then I love that their ticker was actually essentially Gemmy, like Gemini. But that was a good ticker overall for them. I don't know, like out of all the crypto exchanges for a long time, they kind of looked at like the mediocre second, third tier one, but
Yeah.
more and more they're popping up. They don't have a lot of dev tools like Coinbase or anything. They're way more just like exchange focused.
Yeah, and then with their new credit card that came out. So a few weeks ago, we talked about the Bitcoin credit card, and then we talked about the XRP credit card, but it really is just one. But they were pushing for this public relations move where you could get a limited edition credit card with the Bitcoin design or their latest XRP design. But really, what I think is really cool is you don't need to have a treasury or a large holdings like Coinbase's credit card to get the most rewards. And as a result, I use it a lot. I use it literally for everything. And I have an electric car, so whenever I charge, I just get 4% back from whenever I travel. Um, it's amazing. I like it. So I've seen myself gravitating more towards Gemini, like organically over the last year. And I grew to enjoy it more and more.
It makes sense. Just on their business perspective, though, they lost money in 2024. They lost money in 2025. Sooner or later, the market's going to look at them and see if they actually make sense. Again, really strong brand presence. It's like Coinbase, Crypto.com, and Gemini that really get talked about. Kraken has been doing really big marketing pushes.
Kraken's really
Um,
good too.
yeah, so like there's a bunch of stiff competition. You have Binance, which is really an international one. You have Binance US, but the Binance US is a different company, different thing. They also have a ton of debt that could really drag them down at some point. They got to stop these losses, figure it out. They've got a custody business, they've got compliance infrastructure. I think that's going to be really interesting to institutional investors. But it just shows that crypto markets are getting more regulatory clarity. It lowers the risk for these crypto related IPOs and lets them go raise public money and raise a large sum of it without having to either go raise another round or even just take on some sort of further debt that could put them in a really bad spot if
Yep.
crypto at some time has a bear market and just pushes all their exchange, volume down.
I agree.
I also think it's like a really good signal for IPOs. Like, and I talked about it before, more of these crypto companies IPOing means more of them just hitting the markets and having the confidence to go do that. And then investors having that confidence to put more money into these crypto quasi companies and just, kind of keep pushing it. I would be interested to see, what Gemini does with this money. Maybe they do some sort of partnerships with stable coins. Maybe they build out more infrastructure, dev tools. It's kind of unclear, but I think if they stick to being an exchange, like the custody, the compliance, and all of those large institutions would probably flock to them as a place to buy crypto like reserves.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think it's interesting how, despite being at a loss for the last 2 years, you said 23, right? 23 and 24. They still managed.
24 and 25. I'm sure they were
Okay.
losing money before that too.
Yeah, especially since 2023 was kind of the bear market between
Yeah.
22 and 23. It was kind of like people were abandoning crypto left and right. But now it's really interesting to see them. And apologies if I sound like death almost. I don't know how else to put it. I've been recovered from my sickness. I just hear myself and I'm disgusted. Anyways, so
I can feel it too. I've got all the allergies hitting me.
yeah, so it's probably that season. Bull market season is right around the corner, I think, especially since, or I think it happened already, but I think it's interesting to my original point that Gemini still managed to IPO despite being at a loss. I think that was really interesting. So I really don't understand how some of these business sort of things work. I feel like the more I work with a startup, the more I understand business, but it always surprises me how business can work. A lot of it is just based on vibes and just having the right people with you. And maybe they just had both, led them to the IPO.
Oh yeah, 100%. Anything else on Gemini? If not, let's go to
I think I'm good.
Polymarket. Okay, let's
Yeah,
do it. So saw a
Polymarket
tweet.
is. Sorry, just wanted to say that I really love Polymarket. I think they're trying to position themselves as this news media place, which I think it's interesting. There are times where I feel like I learn about what's happening around the world when I go on Polymarket because the bets that they make, but I feel like there's still ways to go to make it a reliable news site.
Yeah, that's the hard part for them, like making it reliable. So this is the tweet that I saw. Crypto prediction platform, Polymarket valued up to 10 billion in VC investment offers.
Yep.
Really big, which makes sense considering they're turning to like
We
into a news site. So this is
oh, and now it's
interesting.
99%. Wait, let's see what it was like a week
Yeah, I can
ago.
see it.
Odds that we were going to
Can you
hit
hear
it
it?
was 50%.
Yeah, I
So
hear it. It's kind of loud.
someone said "F
Okay.
you, Mr. Beast" down here. But so a lot of people who bet that we weren't going to hit it are DDoSing the site.
So just the summary of it is Mr. Beast, this guy with 400 million YouTube subscribers,
Yeah.
is checking Polymarket to see if like bets on him raising the money for that Make Water, the water nonprofit that he was doing was actually going to raise the amount that they said. Really fascinating to kind of see that out there, to see that he just, a pretty well-known YouTuber also knows about Polymarket, knows that this is a thing, and like wants to kind of engage with it and show people out there. That's another fascinating part. It's just like permeating into pop culture and into the rest of the world, kind of like regular betting has. Like sports
Yep.
betting has always been a staple of everything. Everyone talks about bookies and all that. I'm sure, so one day you're gonna have a bookie on which president wins and it's gonna be Polymarket.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kalshi is the second largest prediction market in the US. And it at one point was the most favored, most used because Polymarket wasn't available yet in the US until what was it earlier this month? They finally got clearance with CFTC, so they're finally in the US. You can go to polymarket.com and start betting without using a VPN. So I think that's
Yes, it
huge.
was it was really cool. Now there's big shifts here. So the fact that Polymarket's breaking news, like Nepal, and if you don't know about what happened in Nepal,
Oh yeah.
the high level gist of it is they passed some laws about restricting social media, more or less kind of banning it in some ways by companies just not wanting to follow those rules in that specific country, which led to a revolt, revolution, however you want to phrase it, in the country. They stormed the Capitol. The prime minister, people were leaving, government officials in helicopters and on ropes, and then they turned around and Gen Z went and did a Discord vote and essentially overthrew the government through social
Wow.
media and kind of pushing on all of that. And Polymarket was one of the first places that I saw break the news, and then on top of that, kind of dig in and provide more information on it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So we're starting to see Polymarket become more than just a betting marketplace. I mean, it not only can you do sports, but then you could do political events, you could do YouTuber, social influencer kind of events, including now people betting on. Can they bet on Gen Z's overthrowing the government? Was that a market that they were able to bet on? Do you know?
I'm not entirely sure, like that part, but I know there was bets on how long the military would hold the government, how when a new prime minister would be voted on. There was a lot of
Okay.
information on that, and I think one of the bets was like, when is the new prime minister going to take over? And that's how you got that news. Essentially, Polymarket, was following it super closely.
That makes sense. Also, I don't think you have a like a post about it or a tweet, if you still want to call it a tweet. But Robinhood, they had their State of the Summit. What was it, last week? They're doubling down on prediction markets, and they're planning to release their own prediction market
Yeah,
on Robinhood. So
yeah, they're
it
going
doesn't
to
get more
replace
validating than that.
Kashi's like integration, but also like Kashi was non-crypto based. This is very crypto based. They're using blockchain to validate it and all that, but
Yep.
it's a shift for them, and it makes a lot of sense considering what they're doing. Like there is a whole channel on Twitter that I discovered that's essentially powered by Polymarket. It's like a go-to news source,
Cross
and
alert.
it's all like out there. It's kind of like unusual wells in a way, but they're just like posting about news and putting everything out there that's happening. I
Wow.
believe they're one of the first two to like touch on Charlie Kirk and like validate it. They might have the most up-to-date news generally because those prediction markets, people are watching them and they're looking for outcomes. And when those outcomes are validated from sources that are, either video or, actual people on the ground that are reputable, they turn around and, immediately start talking and saying, yeah, this is just what's happening. And it's sticky when real events are kind of tied to something online. People want to pay attention.
That makes sense. I think it's awesome. The guy who built Polymarket essentially was inspired by this original predictions market that kind of existed in the early Ethereum days. And then by 2020, he was actually building it from. There's this famous post that he made that where he talks about having his little office set up in a restroom, and he was just coding there, built it with React, JavaScript, you name
Yeah.
it. It was really interesting. And seeing how far they've come, I think it's very inspiring. So, I'll talk more about that once we get into the Jesse Pollack story with Y Combinator. But yeah, I mean, I'm very excited to see what's going to come with Polymarket now that they don't have any handcuffs or anything holding them back from building and creating new things for the product.
Yeah, it's a cultural moment for them, and it's helping in their valuation, and also just pushing people to like not just hold tokens, actually use it. I would call it a social finance platform in a way. Like it's the closest to it.
Yeah, it kind of is. They do have like chat rooms and blog and forum rooms on their betting markets, so I can see it being more of a social finance platform. Yep.
Yeah. Well,
Great.
that's all I got on that one. Do you want to go to? I think we're going to talk the WLFI.
That's right. So, World Liberty Finance came out recently. It's been a bit of a developing story. So, for those of you who don't remember, we covered the launch on September 1st when they first launched, and the token kind of went parabolic for a moment and then it kind of just died down by like 50%. So, it launched like at, or maybe it was valued like right under 50 cents and then it went to 24 cents. Well, I found this story on Twitter, and it's from Crypto World, and it goes, just in, NASDAQ rules force Eric Trump off the board of World Liberty Treasury firm ALT5 Sigma, Forbes report. World Liberty Finance reacting red to the news. So further, the token went further down. It's now sitting right about 19 cents as of this screenshot. And I don't know if you can pull out the price right now, Leon, but I think it's sitting probably around that same price considering how it happened just a few days ago, this last week. And there's another story that I'll cover here in a moment.
World Liberty coin right now is sitting at 21.54. So about I
21.
call it 22 cents if you round up. Their all-time high was 33 cents, so an all-time low was 16 cents.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so what's the other? I don't know what network you're looking at on.
It's the Ethereum one, the
Okay,
Etherscan, yeah, the
I'd be
main one.
surprised. I think it was the Solana one where it went almost 50 cents, which is kind of interesting and clear because I was talking to a friend the other day and he said that just Solana has more volume right now than Ethereum, which I think it's interesting because
But
market
I
cap.
thought when they run across these networks, I don't understand how they're different, but the Solana one is pretty much pegged at the same cost, 21.48, and right now Ethereum's
Okay.
21.54. And all-time high on sorry, I'm in the Gecko terminal and I never remember where they
CoinGecko can
put
be a
the
little,
highs.
its UI can be a little finicky.
Wow, I don't know where to find the all-time high in this interface.
That's where social market comes in. We build the more easy to use UI UX and also give you the relevant information.
That's a great
Shameless
ad
plug real
for it.
quick.
It definitely is. I cannot tell you, and and I'm probably the dumb one here, but I cannot tell you the high. I see the pool, the holders, the soul scanner.
You can go to Deck Screener. Deck Screener will give you a better, view on it.
Let's go do it real quick.
Yeah, so you're on Deck
Where
Screener. So it tells you the price. Now, this is World Liberty Finance. It's on Solana. It says WL. I don't know if that's the right ticker. It should be WLFI. Because if you go on the top left, so there it is. It's any of
it's a
those.
Solana one? Okay.
So you can see the price. It's sitting at 21 cents, and then should tell you more on the details, I believe, if you scroll down a little bit. Now, Dex Screener gives you all the data from all the different decentralized exchanges, like Radium in this case. Radium is a popular swapping tool for tokens on Solana. It tells you a lot there, but I'm not seeing an all-time high, which I think it's
Yeah.
interesting
No, I don't know
because,
where they keep that. I've given up on finding.
well, anyways, it's sitting at 21 cents right now. So this is from Alpha Hamster, and I think it's a funny name, Alpha Hamster. Anyways, this is a thread which I think was really interesting that kind of goes more into detail here what happened. So it goes, ALT5 Sigma holds 72.8 billion tokens. Eric Trump on the board. There were some blacklisted scandal, and this guy kind of just goes over it here on the thread. So I'll just paraphrase here real quick. World Liberty Finance holdings have grown to roughly 7.28 billion tokens, worth about 1.31 billion at the price of 18 cents. So right now it's probably worth a little bit more. This comes
Yeah.
after raising 1.5 billion to purchase the token as a strategic move for their crypto treasury. Now, earlier ALT5 raised 1.5 billion through the sale of 200 million shares of World Liberty Finance. Eric Trump joined the board of directors, and his brother Donald Jr. joined as an observer. Zach Witkoff became a chairman. This amplifies the political hype, drawing attention to World Liberty Finance as Trump coin, which I think is interesting because we already have a Trump meme coin, but this is just being associated to now the Trump coin. And then the founder of the NFT project RMRK accused World Liberty Finance of marketing his address as high risk and blocking tokens, calling it quote-unquote theft. Polygon Devrel also complains about the freeze. World Liberty Finance responded by saying, "We only intervene to protect, but the community is shocked by the new era of censorship." So it looks like people who were blacklisted, and I didn't know until reading this. This was the founder of RMRK for the NFT project, and then this person was blacklisted, and I guess this is where the scandal kind of broke through. Now, it follows. Actually, 272 wallets were frozen by World Liberty Finance, which was confirmed by them. Over the past few days, they have blocked 272 addresses, of which roughly 215 are associated with phishing and 150 are compromised. This is a small portion of all holders to prevent damage. But critics ask if they did this to San 595 million World Liberty Finance. I don't know who that is. Looks like some individual. Who's next? You know, if he was already hit. Questions rose about compliance. Which, yeah, I guess one thing I did see on my own was that people were protesting like this is not really a decentralized network or token as far as the tokenomics go. I can see where the risk comes from.
Yeah.
Like if you're holding World Liberty Finance long term, if you truly believe in it, you know, there's always the risk of getting your wallet frozen somehow remotely, which I don't know if you have a wallet on Coinbase or something, they could freeze your funds somehow. That would be interesting to see it happen. So this is a chart that's shown from Dex Screener actually, and it says the price and kind of like the market movement that same day when it happened. The last thread here in the thread, I guess, it just it kind of glances over what could happen in the future. Trump was removed as a direct, what was it, a direct board member involved, and he became more of an observer with Donald J. Trump, or Donald Jr. I mean, things enveloped, things evolved. Overall, seems to be more skepticism over WLFI. People are suddenly becoming more concerned whether they should continue to hold that token. In the meantime, because they IPO'd, NASDAQ actually, per NASDAQ, they had to step down Eric Trump because, his family ties with the president. So that's kind of like how the story developed. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I just think that there's a lot of uncertainty. It's concentrated holdings. There's political ties. No matter which way it was, like anything when there's political person in office that also has stake in the company, it just gets a little murky. People are
Yeah.
like worried if Trump doesn't win the next election or Republicans don't, I could see Democrats going after, the World Liberty Finance. So there's always a little bit of that. If they do win, how much longer can they keep going until somebody like flips and says that there's a problem,
Yeah,
whether there's not
absolutely.
or there is. Those concentrated holdings are big, and then there's a big possibility this is classified as a security. Like it more and more looks like a security to me than an actual like token.
That makes
I'm not
sense.
sure. I don't like that it's very centralized.
Yeah.
Concentrated holdings, like that's my biggest thing. If it wasn't like that, it would look way more appealing, especially with the fact that crypto is, just taking off at the moment and just being truthful. It's like
Yep.
the the current administration is very crypto friendly, and the fact that it's controlled by them too, I would think that they would be able to offset a lot of that in the end. But let's see if they build out real utility payments governance or something, or if it's just like an identity asset, like slash mostly hype. I'm kind of like up in the air on what happens there.
Yeah, so I think one thing you'll start to notice is IPOs and stock initial offers or initial public offers. We're going to start to see that more with tokens in the form of crypto or formerly known as ICOs. Just because they're cryptos, it doesn't mean that they're all going to be with the purpose of having a publicly available token that it's decentralized and everyone can trade and make money together or something. In
Yes.
this case, I can see your concerns with it being labeled as a security, which I don't know what would happen. I would prefer if it wasn't labeled as a security, but the way they're treating the token, I can see concerns uprising as being a security. So only time will tell. This was the latest developments as far as World Liberty Finance, but we'll keep you guys updated as the weeks go. And on to our last story. So this is with Jesse Pollack, who's in the executive board with Coinbase. He was also the, I guess, founder of Base within Coinbase. This is the layer 2 blockchain where
Okay,
they,
so he was the guy who really started Base, right? Like
yeah, he
that
was.
was kind of his whole, like, I don't want to say claim to fame, but that was like his doing.
It really was. And then it started as a small project, and then I'm not too sure I remember the details, but it started as a project, and then Brian Armstrong said, "Hey, well, if you can make this network faster, and then you can, I don't know, just make it a more compelling layer 2 than what's currently available with like Uniswap, Arbitrum, Optimist, you name it, several Ethereum-based layer 2s." In fact, that was just a year ago when it was created, and then up until now, Base became this very popular network. You can use Farcaster on it. As far as their new Base app, you can use, Coinbase's latest decentralized exchange. So you no longer need to use Coinbase itself as a centralized exchange. You can use, you know, its decentralized exchange to swap tokens and self custody. So that's really cool. So recently, Jesse Pollak, who became this very influential person in the crypto space as a result over the success of Base, he went to Y Combinator, which is this very renowned. For those of you who don't know, think of it like the Harvard
They live under
of
a rock
startup
if they don't
accelerators.
know.
What do you mean?
They live under a rock if they don't know.
Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, but you live under a rock. But honestly, like, I don't blame you. Business, startups, it's a fast world, and a lot of people just can't keep up with it. But with Y Combinator, it's this very the biggest companies in the world right now. Most of them have come out from Y Combinator. Companies like Reddit, Coinbase, Instacart, um, Airbnb, you name it. Those big companies, they've come out from Y Combinator. And I think it was between 2021 and 22 when they were backing crypto-based companies, primarily
Yeah.
in 2021. And until now, when we have applied with social market, you see a lot of AI-based tools and B2B tools as well. This is kind of like where we are with AI and crypto. You know, crypto is no longer this very appetizing thing. They've backed companies in crypto in this year. Most of them have been like stablecoin issuers, stablecoin sort of developer tools, which is where they believe more right now. They believe more on stablecoins, the functionality of stablecoins, and they've only, I think, funded like 3 companies this year. Most of them
Yeah,
have
we
been
were
AI
talking
tools.
about it a little bit too. I wonder, I don't know if it's like that it's not as appetizing or if it's more of just like the companies that they're looking for now are more mature, so they're trying to figure out like which one to actually make the best bet. Because
Okay, that makes sense.
like I guess AI kind of had that moment of like what startups to actually go after because most were just like ChatGPT like GUI, like you were just building another interface on top of ChatGPT, plugging it into your
Yeah.
app. Whereas now a bunch of companies have kind of figured out like, oh, we can do a lot of really cool stuff. And from there, I wonder the same thing here. Like crypto first wave, it was like what is it? A bunch of people were making tokens and coins, and now people are like, oh no, hey, it's actually a financial system, and they're trying to figure out like which companies are gonna have impact.
Yep. So it's all a betting game almost, which I think that's why Polymarket kind of exploded because betting happens everywhere all the time, including in the business world. So, anyways, the story here is that Jesse Pollak, who became this renowned person on the crypto space, went to Y Combinator and said he spent a day there and he said they are open for business for crypto. So we're probably going to start to see in the requests for startups or RFS or maybe other outlets in other socials of theirs starting to say, hey, if you're building a crypto startup, come join us. I left a reply saying, hey, I would love to see their RFS, to which Jesse says, interesting. So I'm kind of wondering if he knows what RFS is or request for startups. Other
Abbreviations are hard. I didn't even realize it until
okay, yeah, true.
you and who we were talking with on the chat was like, oh
Yeah.
hey, request for startups, and I was like, oh okay, okay, but I had never really seen it just abbreviated. And I was like, man, I'm getting old, or I'm just dumb.
In the business world, this is probably where the most abbreviations exist over anything else. Even some dumb ones. Like RFS makes sense, but I don't know. You go to some HR training or something, and then they say follow fear or something, and
Yeah,
fear stands for this and that for I don't know some
yeah.
bullshit with
I
HR.
hate abbreviations. I hate jargon.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
It's bad.
I agree. So in this case, he just said interesting, which I thought it was funny. And then later that same day, Brian Armstrong reposts his tweet and he says, "Time to 10x the number of YC crypto companies." So I saw somewhere on Twitter that said, Brian Armstrong is the kind of person when he speaks, things happen in the markets in the crypto industry. So who knows? I think this would be good. It would be good to see more crypto companies. If you're building a startup, this is probably your time. If you are building on Base, this is probably your time. I wouldn't be surprised if Coinbase and the Base team are going to be advocating for Base developers, which, if you're building on Base as a network, This could be your time. This could be your signal. A lot can happen before the end of the year. I think Y Combinator's last batch is in winter 2025. So if we don't see it by winter 2025, request for startups, which has not gone up yet, then or even if request for startups doesn't have anything that says they're looking for startups, maybe they're just going to be more receptive and not dismissive for crypto companies to
Yeah.
apply
I
as a
so I
whole.
was just reading through a bunch of those as you were talking, a bunch of threads and stuff inside of that.
Yep.
The
This same post.
reoccurring thing, yeah, like besides all the junk, if you get into it, the reoccurring thing is monetization models are a problem for crypto companies, which is true. And it
Yeah.
kind of goes to the maturity of companies, is which companies are actually able to make money. Um, layer two competition's intense. Like there's a lot of L2s, roll-ups,
Yep.
security, decentralization trade-offs that are tricky. But Web3 blockchains struggle to make revenue based on beyond gas fees, and a wallet and L2 combo might help, but it's still a big thing. And then ecosystem stickiness is a big problem, like convincing users, developers, and everything to kind of get together. Base is doing the best one. I think it's partially because Coinbase is just behind it.
Coinbase is this
Like
giant, you know,
it, it,
crypto
it
influence.
reduced some of the friction, but honestly, now that I'm in the beta of Base, I like it, but it's not as smooth as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like a leap forward, and it's like, not really. Also, it's like how much influence or like blockchains built by exchange-backed entities are going to really have out there, because if you're an exchange, you want to centralize control, but also there's like a big tension between that and decentralization, like all of that. I think as these first cohorts of like this new type of crypto startup comes out, I think it's going to be a signal to investors what criteria, what to look for in founders, what sort of infrastructure and consumer apps are out there. I think it's going to be a big push out there once that starts happening, because they'll set the first steps and say, hey, this is the criteria of people, this is the criteria of companies, and then everybody will invest around that.
Honestly, we'll see what happens. I think it's fun to speculate, which is what we
Yes.
do. We do best, but only time will tell because I think we've seen time after time companies say something kind of out there. And for one, if you're into that narrative, it's really easy to support it, but only time will tell because even if you have like one of the brightest entrepreneurs building one of the most innovative tools, like say Steve Jobs who built the iPhone or who was responsible for the iPhone, it only really depends the impact it'll bring and the value it'll bring to users because going back to the iPhone moment real quick, people and news outlets were skeptic on the success of the iPhone, but yet people used it.
Yeah.
People would say one thing, but on the other hand, you would see people actually gravitating more to an iPhone. And now iPhone is everywhere, and the design of the iPhone is evolved into every other smartphone. So,
It's just like Hacker News and everyone,
yeah,
shitting on Dropbox back in the day. That's my favorite kind of
okay,
reference point of like, you could do this with a NAS. You like, who wants cloud storage? Blah blah blah. And they're billion-dollar company now, like struggling to some degree, out there, but they knew where they were heading, and that's an important part too. So let's see. Like, I'm really curious. I know somebody's going to figure it out. It's just I think Brian Armstrong has to push along to
yeah.
help all of that.
I think if you're putting money in something, you're bound to see more of said thing evolve and grow and could bring value. I'll finish it off with this though. This is from a tweet that I read earlier from Nicole de Tomaso. I don't know how to pronounce her name, but Nicole de Tomaso said, "If your startup sounds obvious, you're too late. If it sounds
Yeah.
crazy, you might be early enough." So, looking back at the Dropbox story, it was too early where people were being so skeptical. So, if you're on the startup world building something for crypto, just keep going. If people tell you it sounds crazy, then that could be a good sign because they don't see it yet. And when they see it, it becomes too late. So, keep on building.
Yep.
All right.
I believe in that.
So, yeah. Do you have anything else to talk about? I think we're good overall.
No, I think that's it. The normal pitch, subscribe, like to the channel. If you've made it this far, leaving a review on Apple Podcasts is super helpful. Maybe mention what, crypto coin or blockchain that you're most interested in, and maybe we'll respond or talk about it on the
Yeah.
show. But that's going to be the most impactful thing you could do.
Yeah, if you want us to cover anything specific at any time, reach out to us and we'll get back to you.